let's move on to Total Recall from 1990, in which Arnie plays Douglas Quaid, a man with an infatuation about Mars. He dreams about it a lot and would really like to go live there for some weird reason. His supposed wife doesn't want to... she doesn't want to go there, so he learns about a place called Recall, which offers fake memory implants. And, he goes there, gets a treatment, so he could at least have a nice memory of having visited Mars. And they also offer an alternative identity, so instead of traveling to Mars as a tourist in this memory, he could instead have spent his time there as a secret agent, which has people trying to kill him at almost every turn. Sounds like a wonderful vacation. But, there seems to be complications during the memory implant process, and, well, the only question remains, the events of the movie, is this just the memory he bought, or is everything actually really happening? Is he really this person with this other identity? So, anyways, it's a very classic movie. It's a movie I've seen so many times. I began watching it roughly not too long after it was released, so I saw this a lot even as a little kid. And hey, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. How can you hate it? I mean, even if the movie is stupid as fuck, just having Arnie on there, he's just got that level of charisma where almost, not everything, but almost everything he's in is at least somewhat enjoyable or watchable. So yeah, I think this is it's a very good movie. It's a fun sci-fi action movie. Lots of decent characters, memorable characters, decent actors. There's a lot to like about the movie. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, so this is a movie, and this may not surprise anybody who knows me, but this is a movie I had not seen before. Not only had I not seen it before, I didn't know jack shit about it. I heard the name, no idea what it was about. I didn't even know Schwarzenegger was in it, to be honest. I had no idea, so I went into this one pretty blind. I was actually at times reminded of The Matrix, which is actually a sci-fi movie I've seen. There's a few things, the whole reality shifting nature of the memories going on, and I thought this movie, it was pretty decent. My I guess biggest gripe with it, if I had to come up with a main gripe, is that I feel like if it was made maybe 6 years later, they could have maybe made it look a bit better. I'm not saying the movie looks particularly bad. I mean, I'm sure they did the best that they could, but I could definitely tell it was an early 90s movie. And I guess that, that might not be necessarily a negative thing, but it certainly felt dated in some aspects to me. And, I enjoyed the story enough, but throughout the whole movie, I just couldn't help but, see this as what it was, just an early 90s sci-fi movie.
Well, it to me, it feels more late 80s, and I mean, it's released in 1990, so I'm assuming it was at least in production at some point in 1989.
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's just, I mean, like I said, it's not a negative, but you can certainly tell, it's funny because actually just a few days before I watched Total Recall, I happened to watch The Matrix again. So seeing an early 2000s sci-fi movie pit against a early 90s, it's a world of difference. I mean, both of them are philosophically interesting. And I really like the idea behind the, memory implants in Total Recall. I actually, as soon as he heard the advertisement on, I think it was a train, I actually paused the movie to think about it for a few minutes. Because it's such an interesting concept. You get a weeks full of memories that you didn't actually have to spend the time to acquire. It's just such an interesting idea, and it's a shame it didn't work out a bit better.
I really like the opening theme music to the movie. Really gets you going.
Yeah, it's decent, and actually that does remind me. There was one part of the movie that did annoy me a bit. Like I said, this is first time watching, but this is seen about maybe halfway through or so, in which a guy claiming to be a doctor comes up to Schwarzenegger's character, says, "Hey, something went wrong with the memory thing you're just going through some mental, I forget that phrase he used, but basically he was having the breakdown, and he was supposed to bring him back to the quote-unquote real warlord, and everything up to that point had been, just part of this machine and fake memories. It was an interesting idea. The problem was that we had already seen as an audience scenes from outside of his perspective, and those are scenes that Schwarzenegger's character wasn't, he didn't know, for instance, that the guys were tracking him, that he had a tracker in his head until he was told by another character. And this thing was also a scene in the boardroom with the RoboCop homeboy. So there's just scenes from outside his perspective that we never would have known, and he definitely didn't know about. So that made the whole thing, oh hey, this thing's all been fake, it just made it fall a little flat for me. I mean, it was an interesting idea. I just can't imagine many people falling for it.
I fall for it.
Oh, okay.
Look, I like to think of this movie as it is actually all a dream, and he's just really like lobotomized by the end of it, and I like to go with that thought.
Yeah, I did notice, and I read a little bit online after it, but I haven't had that much time to dig deep into it. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff online about this movie. I did notice though, I think it was early in the movie he mentioned something about Mars having a blue sky, and then of course toward the end after what happens it has a blue sky, and I did think that was I thought it was interesting. So I can definitely, I don't have an opinion one way or the other on whether or not those are fake, but I thought there's enough evidence to point in that way that I would have a problem with people thinking that.
Yeah, well, one other thing that we have to discuss, because I remember when we talked about Deadly Blessing, you were like, you had no idea who Sharon Stone is, and you still have no idea.
Oh yeah, she's in this movie?
Oh yeah, she's in this movie. Oh yeah. She plays Arnold's supposedly fake wife?
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And this is her in her prime. So, shame on Jigsaw.
I'm okay with that. She was, when she was doing that whole Tannis thing, that was a decently, let's just say, I wouldn't mind if she banged my ball.
Yeah. Well, she's doing the whole, you can tie me up if you want, and she's been real kinky.
Although, I do have to say, after, I probably think the other woman, I think her character's name is Elena, something like that. I think she was probably a bit more attractive, but that's just my personal preference. I may be entirely wrong, but I'm used to that.
Look, I can definitely see both as attractive. I would still go for Sharon Stone.
Now the real question is, who's more attractive, Schwarzenegger or Michael Ironside?
No.
Okay.
No, we are not going to debate
Question
that.
for the ages.
Why, do you have an answer for that?
Not so much, no.
Yeah, I'll go back to talking about the cast of this movie. I mean, obviously people are familiar with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I thought everyone was familiar with Sharon Stone. Michael Ironside, we've got Ronnie Cox, who's from RoboCop. In fact, if you're not aware, the guy that made this movie, also, his first sci-fi movie he made was RoboCop.
Oh, I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. I actually watched an interview with him after watching this movie because it's on the Blu-ray, and he's going on about how he'd never really done any kind of sci-fi movies before, and his wife kind of pushed him to do RoboCop. To be honest, he didn't really want to do it. He thought it was a bit of a stupid idea, and apparently his wife pushed him to do it, and supposedly, based on the reaction he got from that, then he started getting sci-fi scripts from everywhere, and he didn't even really have interest in doing sci-fi, but I think they said something like he was getting all these scripts, and he got the script for Total Recall, and they gave him like this 3-hour ultimatum after receiving the script by a courier and saying, like, you've got 3 hours after receiving the script to say you're going to do it. and apparently they already told him, look, Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be in this movie. He's going to do it whether you make it or not. And I don't know, for whatever reason, he's like, yeah, let's do it. And apparently the only thing later on after signing on to do it that he had reservations about was the fact that that had been like the 42nd revision of the script. So, and he said they still didn't really have a way to end the movie. So he was a bit worried about that. But it eventually kind of came up with stuff, and it's all good. Sorry, I sidetracked into talking about the director now, but I was originally talking about the cast. But there's a lot of other smaller roles in the movie by people who you probably have seen in other things. Now, some of them I can't even remember the names for. Like the guy with the messed up face, you know, the guy who says to Arnie, "You've got a lot of nerve showing your face around here." I know I've seen that actor. Like I looked him up on IMDb. I've seen him in a whole bunch of other things before. I don't remember his name. And you know, like you got the little midget woman, Debbie Lee Carrington, who I think unfortunately she passed away a few years ago, but a lot of people would be familiar with her in some movies and stunt work she does. You know, she's the real life stunt double for Tiffany in the Chucky movies.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so there's a few of these different people scattered all over the place that you would have seen in other things. May not necessarily know all their names, like I, where I forget all their names. But yeah, it's even the the black guy that plays Benny, the cab driving alien. He it's just interesting because I looked him up to see what else he's had involvement with, and I noticed he was a producer on one of your favorite horror movies, Killjoy.
That's a horrible guy then. Although I do have to say his demise is pretty quality.
Yeah. So, you know, just a lot of interesting different people in the movie and different things they've done.
Yeah, I'll just say I do think it's interesting that I don't even remember the guy, the RoboCop guy. I think it's interesting that he throughout the movie kept trying to get his old friend back. The guy that Schwarzenegger used to be. But of course it could never work, so he eventually just had to give up that dream. And so that was a bit interesting, and I also want to point out yeah, this, as far as I can tell, assuming if what we saw was accurate, this whole thing went down just because this guy is power hungry and just wants to make more money. So that's some quality political allegory right there. I mean, everybody could have been okay if he just turned that machine on, but no, he's doing his own thing. Guess screw the people.
Yeah. One other thing, just before I rate it, one other thing that I almost forgot to mention, but I don't know how I could forget to mention this, is we need to talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger's balls in this movie, because they take a lot of damage. There's multiple scenes in the movie where he gets hit in the dick. I think he gets kicked in the balls. Actually, a couple of times. It's usually a kick to the balls. I mean, in fact, there's a funny video on YouTube. I don't know what it's called or what, but it's kind of putting together clips from this movie of Arnold Schwarzenegger taking testicular damage, and it kind of ends with this one. The scene towards the end of the movie where they're kind of returning these two characters to, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character back to the asshole that he used to be, and they're going to turn her into like his obedient wife or girlfriend or whatever. And she says something like, "I'll break his balls." And they have that on this clip after him getting hit in the nuts so many times. They end it with, "I'm gonna break his balls." I don't know, it's just funny, and I certainly feel for Arnie's nads in this movie.
I mean, really, he went through the ringer pretty much throughout the whole thing. You just have to feel bad for the guy.
I'll just summarize this by saying, good movie. I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It's a classic from my childhood, and like I said, it's Arnie. It's the director of RoboCop. There's a lot of good things happening in here, a lot of enjoyable things. It's a roller coaster ride with, I think, a fairly decent plot. I don't see how you could really hate the movie. So it's good for me.
Yeah, I think it's a decent movie. Interesting, very interesting idea. I was happy to see it. I did love the movie, but I could definitely watch it again. And I don't know, it's overall a pretty fun time. Plus, we did even mention, I'm surprised Chucky didn't mention it, but you also have some women with breasts, so it's always good stuff.
Well, yeah, the fact that you didn't know who Sharon Stone was, and you chose someone else over her in this movie.
I know. I'm a disappointing guy.
I mean, I can't recall, but I'm pretty sure she had the bigger boobies too. So that's another reason why I would choose Sharon Stone.
Okay, so I think I'm going to throw this movie a 7 out of 10, which is my average rating. But I could see that going either up or down if I see this one again. It's certainly not a bad movie. And like I said, it is nice to finally see a movie. It's pretty good stuff. That's all I have.
I guess Jiggy likes his women to be demure.
Yeah, actually, that's another interesting thing. The exact same type of woman pops. A lot of interesting things in this movie, and I am a demure woman type guy, which could be taken wrong, but